Imagine this. It's 1941. Adolf Hitler stands at the absolute peak of his power. His armies have conquered France in just 46 days. His forces stretch from the freezing Arctic to the burning deserts of North Africa, from the Atlantic coast to the gates of Moscow. Nearly all of Europe is under the Nazi swastika. Every general around him is calling him a military genius. And then, in just 4 years, everything collapses. His empire crumbles. His armies surrender. His closest allies abandon him. And Hitler himself is hiding underground in a bunker, completely broken, waiting for the end. So what happened? How does the most powerful military machine in history go from conquering an entire continent to total and absolute destruction? Today, we're going to break down exactly how Hitler lost World War II, the mistakes, the decisions, the turning points that sealed the fate of the Third Reich forever. Stay with me, because this story is absolutely insane. Before we dive deep, let's understand the scale of what Hitler had built. By 1942, Nazi Germany controlled territory stretching across 3 million square miles. His military, the Wehrmacht, was considered the most disciplined and deadly fighting force on the planet. Germany had advanced tanks, aircraft, submarines, and some of the most brilliant military commanders in history. Hitler had already taken Poland in 27 days, Denmark and Norway in weeks, France, Belgium, Netherlands in under 2 months, Yugoslavia and Greece in just 11 days. On paper, this looked unstoppable. But beneath this surface of power, cracks were already forming. And those cracks would grow into fault lines that would bring the entire Third Reich crashing down. Let's break it down, mistake by mistake, decision by decision. Mistake number 1, the Battle of Britain, 1940. Hitler's first catastrophic mistake came in the summer of 1940. After crushing France, Hitler turned his attention to Britain. His plan was simple: destroy the Royal Air Force, gain air superiority, and then invade across the English Channel. The operation was called Operation Sea Lion. For weeks, the German Luftwaffe, their air force, hammered British airfields. The RAF was on the edge of collapse. Britain was losing pilots faster than they could train new ones. Another few weeks of this, and Britain might have fallen. But then Hitler made a massive error. After a British bombing raid accidentally hit Berlin, Hitler became furious. He ordered the Luftwaffe to stop targeting airfields and instead bomb London and British cities. This was pure emotional revenge, not strategy. And it was the worst decision he could have made. It gave the Royal Air Force time to recover and rebuild. Britain survived. The invasion never happened. And Britain remained a massive base from which the Allies would later launch their counterattack into Europe. First crack. First mistake. Mistake number 2. Operation Barbarossa, 1941. Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in human history. Over 3 million German soldiers stormed into the Soviet Union across an 1,800-mile front. Hitler called it a crusade against Bolshevism. His generals told him it would be over in 3 months. They called it a military walk in the park. They were catastrophically wrong. Yes, in the beginning, Germany advanced rapidly, capturing hundreds of thousands of Soviet prisoners and destroying entire Soviet armies. But the Soviet Union was simply too massive, too large, too deep. The further Germany pushed east, the longer their supply lines stretched. And then came the Russian winter. German soldiers found themselves fighting in temperatures of minus 40 degrees Celsius, with no winter clothing, no proper equipment, and supply lines completely frozen. Tanks stopped working, guns jammed. Soldiers froze to death in their positions. Meanwhile, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin ordered a brutal strategy: scorched earth. Burn everything, leave nothing for the Germans. And at the same time, massive Soviet reinforcements arrived from Siberia. Fresh, well-equipped soldiers who were trained to fight in winter. At the Battle of Moscow in December 1941, Germany suffered its first major defeat. The myth of German invincibility was shattered. Mistake number 3. Declaring war on America, 1941. Just days after Pearl Harbor, when Japan attacked the United States, Hitler made perhaps his single greatest strategic blunder. He voluntarily declared war on the United States of America. America was the greatest industrial power on Earth. They had unlimited resources, massive manufacturing capacity, and were now fully committed to entering the war in Europe. Hitler didn't have to do this. He had no treaty obligation to declare war on America, but he did it anyway, out of arrogance and poor judgment. This decision brought the full industrial and military might of the United States directly against Germany. American soldiers, American weapons, American supplies flooded into Britain and the Soviet Union. The balance of the war shifted permanently. By 1943, the war had completely turned against Germany. Stalingrad, the bloodiest battle in human history, ended in February 1943 with the complete destruction of an entire German army. Over 300,000 German soldiers were killed or captured. Hitler refused to allow retreat. His stubbornness cost him an irreplaceable force. North Africa was lost. Italy was invaded. And on June 6, 1944, D-Day, Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy in the largest seaborne invasion ever attempted. Nearly 156,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches in a single day. Now, Germany was fighting on every front simultaneously: east, west, south, and from the air above. Their resources were stretched beyond the breaking point. By early 1945, the end was inevitable. Soviet forces were closing in from the east. American and British forces were pushing from the west. German cities were being bombed into rubble around the clock. Hitler retreated into his underground Führer bunker in Berlin, completely disconnected from reality, issuing orders to armies that no longer existed, moving divisions on maps that had already been destroyed. On April 30th, 1945, with Soviet tanks literally rolling through the streets of Berlin above him, Adolf Hitler put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. 1 week later, on May 8th, 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. The Third Reich, which Hitler had promised would last 1,000 years, had lasted just 12 years. So how did Hitler lose World War II? He lost it through arrogance, through overextension, through emotional decision-making instead of strategic thinking. He underestimated his enemies. He ignored his generals. He fought on too many fronts simultaneously, and he refused to accept reality, even when the walls were literally closing in around him.